Hello everyone, I'm Colin Canet. You know, it's been a long time since I did any tips and tricks on the table saw, so today I'm going to do a little bit of catching up, so let's go over there. This tip is from Jim, and Jim is from Dalmax. He's the inventor of the Dalmax, so I have to give him a little bit of a plug there. But this is a great idea. Now, a few videos back, I showed you how you can line your miter saw, and that was a tip from somebody, I just forget off the top of my head, where you put two boards together and you can tell whether your blade is aligned to the fence or not. Well, Jim took that a step further and said, why can't he do that on the table saw? And so he's using it on the table saw, and he explained to me how it is. So it just takes two boards like this, just two flat boards. Of course, they need to be flat along the bottom. And basically, he makes them as high as his blade is high, and then holds them together and just run them through. And I'm going to do that, so watch this. Okay, so there's those two boards. Let me take them, take the front one out and move it around, and you can see they're touching right up at the top, but there's a gap at the bottom. And what that means is that that blade is not at 90 degrees to the table saw top. But look, there's more that you can do with this. Look, if you want to check your miter gauge, you can do the same thing, run it through your blade, then you flip the wood over like this, and if you've got a gap on one side or the other, you'll know that your miter gauge is out of alignment. And I know some of you are saying, oh, Colin, you must have lost it. Why wouldn't you just use a square on there? Well, let me show you. Because I see this all the time, people using these inexpensive combination squares to align their blades. And look at mine, looks like it's perfect. But we already know that it's off because we just checked it with these boards. So what I'm saying is very, very often these inexpensive combination blades are not accurate enough for setting these kinds of things. Because if you're off on any of these settings, if you're off by a few thousand one way, then it means it's off the other angle as well, so it compounds your problem. So if you're making picture frames or boxes or cabinet doors, you can never get a good joint if your blade or your miter gauge are out of alignment. So this is one good way of double checking to make sure all your alignments are correct. So that was a really good tip. Thanks, Jim. Here's a tip from Michael just outside of Vancouver. And Michael says, look, if you're always looking for glasses, you can put them in a little bag and have that bag so that it's magnetized to the side of your table. Now he actually has his underneath, but I'm just putting this up here as a visual to show you. And no, you won't really get dust in it. You can use, if you really want, you can use a Ziploc bag. But look, you're not going to get that much dust in there, especially if you're using it under your saw. And anyway, you're going to have them on your head. And not everybody, I have mine on a string around my neck. Not everybody likes that. And this is a really good solution. You could use these on different tools. It doesn't have to be on your table saw. It might be on a tool that you use infrequently. And these glasses, you know, you can buy these things for very little money now. And, you know, they're really good and you really need good eye protection. So that's a great tip, Michael. Thanks for that. Not very long ago, I got 3 or 4 emails. I don't know why these things always seem to come in groups from people who are cutting very thin. In a couple of cases, they were cutting some laminate, some plastic laminate. And like a lot of table saws, when you try and cut something really thin, look at it, slides right underneath. Here's a quick fix for that. And you know what? I have a sacrificial fence that I can attach here. I just had to look for it, and I don't remember where I put it because I hardly ever use it. And in a pinch, I would do this anyway because you don't do this very often. Look, the simple fix for this is to just get a board, run it through your jointer, or if it's already flat, just set it up on your fence, on your table saw rather, and just use, you only need to use C-clamps and put them up towards the top. And look, you're going to be doing thin stuff anyway, so your blade is only going to be, at a very low angle. You're not going to be raising it up high enough to be hitting these. And then you can set whatever distance it is that you have, and then just run your material through, and that way you've already made sort of a sacrificial or an auxiliary fence, quick and easy. I spent less time making this than I have looking for my other sacrificial fence. So here's a great quick and easy tip for fences that are a little bit high. Here's an idea that might work for those of you who have table saws that have fences that don't align properly. Now, most table saws will have a scale along here. You can't see mine because it's white. If it was yellow, you would see it. It would look like that. But look, here's what you can do. Now, you might have to your saw might be able to adapt to this. It's hard to say. But look, when you set up your saw and you have a scale on one side, it doesn't matter where that scale is, whether you use it or not. What's important is that you have it set someplace, and you can go out and buy this material, this sticky back tape material, and put it down on your saw somewhere. So what you'll do basically is line up your saw at some sort of zero place up here, and you'll use one tape on this side and put another one on here and line it up to that, or some sort of a setting, so that when you move that tape back and forth, you can check it here and check it here and make sure that your line alignment is good. Because the problem with fences that don't line up properly, this is the area when you lock this side down, this side here is the area that moves back and forth. So that way, when you lock this side, you can move that a little bit and then relock this side so that you get good even cuts. So some double-sided tape on the back of the sticky back tape, and that might solve your problem. I made this little push block many years ago, and I lined the bottom with anti-skid material, and it's perfect for doing thin plywoods because it grabs the plywood or the sheet, or even for doing plastic laminate. It works great for both of these, and I don't use it all that often, but whenever I'm using something wide, when I'm cutting something wide on the table saw, it works perfectly. Now, you can make that. You can also make your own very quickly if you need something sort of in a pinch. I'm going to show you how you can make one just with a piece of 3/4 inch board. You probably want something that's 5 or 6 inches wide if you can get it. The wider the better, because you're going to be using it as a push stick like this. Usually we want the blade about a 1/2 tooth above the material. In this case, I'm taking it a little bit higher because I don't want the angle down here. So I'm just going to mark with a pencil temporarily where I want to stop, and I don't want to go very deep along here. Just a little over maybe 1/4 of an inch at the very most, including the blade, the thickness of the blade. So I'm just going to go very thin because we don't need to go very far, and I'll just put a stop anywhere along there, and I've got that stop there. So I'm going to push this through, and I'm going to stop it and turn the saw off. Now we can take that out. You can finish that off by hand. You can see where that's going through right there. You can finish that off by hand, or you can finish that off with a bandsaw. There, and with the magic of photography, that's how quick and easy it is. And now you've got a good push stick for clamping thin materials. And while we're talking about push sticks, let me take a moment, especially for all the new subscribers, and let me tell you why I hate these chicken foot push sticks. I see so many people using these, and these things are very often an accident looking for a place to happen. Let me show you why. First of all, many people put the blade way up. You never ever put the blade way up and leave it up there. You always put the blade just slightly above the thickness of the material you're cutting. Now what happens for long boards, these are okay. You might not get hurt with these, but for short boards, they're just disaster, and here's why. When you're pushing through and the blade goes in this angle, it's cutting down, pushing down on the wood here. But look at what happens when you get to the back of the blade. Look at this. The blade is lifting up here. It's going to lift up like this, and all you have is this little chicken's foot holding on here, and what happens very often, the blade starts lifting, or sorry, the wood starts lifting. These little pieces of wood can start lifting, and then people start panicking because they don't know what to do. If the wood's gonna, sometimes it flies up at them. So there's all sorts of problems with these things. Here's the safe way of doing any kind of wood cutting. You always, always, always set the blade to about a half tooth above the material that you're cutting. Then you run this, you can make these, this is nothing fancy, make this out of old pieces of plywood, all scrap wood, and when you push through with these, here's the reason these are safe. Your hand is away from the blade is cutting at its optimum distance, but because the blade can't flip up, you're holding it down with this part of the push stick. So you've got full control of what you're doing. You push it through and you're done. Well, that concludes my video for today. Tips and tricks on the table saw, and I hope you got something you can use on your table saw. I'm Colin Canet for Woodwork Web. Thanks for watching.